All right, folks. Today we are going to work a little more with function notation. And we are actually going to do function notation today on the Desmos calculator. So that's why you're seeing that up on my screen. When we talked about function notation yesterday, you learned that function notation relies on this statement. And remember what this says. This says that a function of x equals y. So a function of x equals y. Or remember, you can say f of x equals y. So just to remind you a little bit here about what all of these parts are, the f that we see here is actually the name of the function. And you'll remember from yesterday that they can also use other letters there to name the function, like G or H or P or whatever they want to use. The x that we see inside the parentheses is our input, because x is always the input. And then the y that we see over here, of course, is our output. So whatever you see inside of these parentheses, that's what you're supposed to input for x. So you did some problems yesterday that looked like this. They might say a function of x is equal to 2x plus 1. And then they would say find f of 4. So a function of x is equal to 2x plus 1. Find a function of 4. So remember, what they really want you to do is to take that 4 that you see right there and use it as an input. They want you to plug it in for x. So right over here where you see x, you're going to input that 4. So f of 4 would be 2 times 4 plus 1. And then we do what it says. We do what it says to get our answer. So first we would do 2 times 4, which is 8. And then we would do 8 plus 1, which is 9. So that 9 would be our output. That would be our answer. So this number that you see inside the parentheses is supposed to replace that x. It's supposed to be the input, or the x value that you're using. Now, let's talk about how you're going to do this same thing today using your Desmos calculator. All right? Now, here is the deal. To do function notation on the calculator, there are times that we are going to need some parentheses. And we need parentheses to help the calculator get it right. Okay? So I want you to listen to this carefully, and please make sure you follow what I'm saying. The first time you're going to need parentheses is with exponents. So the first time you're going to need parentheses is with exponents. So if you had something like x raised to the second power, if you're going to put that in the Desmos calculator, then I would want you to wrap the x in parentheses and put the exponent on the outside. So if you saw x to the second power, I would want you to think of it as x in parentheses raised to the second power. You're going to need to add those parentheses. So these two parentheses right here, you will need to add. If you see x to the third power, I would want you to think of that as x in parentheses to the third power. Notice that exponent goes on the outside, so you're going to need to add these parentheses. And that would be true for any exponent that you see. So let's suppose that you had just a really strange problem that had x to the 10th power in it. I would need for you to think of that as x in parentheses raised to the 10th power. So anytime we see an x raised to a power, we're going to put that x in parentheses for purposes of putting it into our Desmos calculator. Now, the other time that you are going to need parentheses is with multiplication. So with multiplication. So over the course of our time together, we have seen things like 2x. Now when I see 2x, I know that means 2 times x. So from here on out, when we're doing these function problems on the calculator, I want you to think of that as 2 parentheses x. I want you to think of that x being wrapped up in a set of parentheses. Because remember, those parentheses mean multiply. That would be true also if I had 5x, which means 5 times x. So for the Desmos calculator, I'm going to have to think of that as 5 parentheses x. That'll be true again no matter what you're multiplying by. So if I had 126x, which means 126 times x, I'm going to write that as 126 parentheses x. So you are going to need to add parentheses to these problems if x is being raised to any power or if x is being multiplied by any number. So that's how we're going to handle this. All right, so let me show you how to do some of these. All right, let's say that we have f of x equal to x squared plus 5x, and we want to find f of negative 2. F of negative 2. All right, what I want you to do first is write this function inserting the parentheses where they're needed. So right here I see x to the second power. I need parentheses there. So that x is going to have to go in parentheses and the exponent is going to be on the outside. Plus 5x, this is 5 times x, so again there, I'm going to want you to put that x in parentheses just like that. So take your function rule and rewrite it, adding any parentheses that are necessary. We need parentheses around this x because he has an exponent, and we need parentheses around this x because he's being multiplied by 5. All right, now we're going to do what this says. We're going to input negative 2 for each of these x's. So you're going to have negative 2 in parentheses squared plus 5 with negative 2 in parentheses. Now, this last line here is what you're actually going to type into your Desmos calculator. And when you type it in, you're going to have to make sure that you use the parentheses. So I'm going to come over here to my calculator now. I'm going to show my keypad. All right, so I'm going to do parentheses, negative 2, close my parentheses, and then I'm going to hit my a squared button. So notice that looks on the calculator exactly like it looks on the board over here. Then we're going to do plus 5 parentheses, negative 2, and close the parentheses. And when I hit enter, I will get my answer right here. You'll notice that your output, your answer is a negative 6. So negative 6 would be the answer to this question. So we're going to add the parentheses that are needed. I need them when x is being raised to a power and when there is multiplication going on. And then you're going to input your number and then type it into the calculator, parentheses and all, exactly the way that you see it. All right, let's try another one. All right, this time, let's do f of x is equal to x minus x squared. X minus x squared. And this time, let's find f of negative 3. This time let's find f of negative 3. All right, what we're going to do first is we're going to take the function rule and rewrite it, inserting any parentheses that are necessary. All right, so this first x that I see isn't raised to a power, and there's nothing being multiplied by it, so that x does not need parentheses. Then I have my minus sign. Now I see x raised to the second power. With that exponent, I know I need parentheses, so I'm going to wrap that x in parentheses and put the exponent on the outside. So this x needs no parentheses because he doesn't have a power and he's not being multiplied by anything. This x needs the parentheses because of his power. All right, so now we input -3 for each of these x's. So we're going to get -3 minus -3 in parentheses squared. And that is what I'm going to type into my calculator, and I'm going to type it exactly the way I see it. So let's clear out this problem, and let's do this. So we're going to put in -3 minus parentheses, -3, close parentheses, and then square. And notice you get your answer right here. So on this problem, -12 is your output. That is your answer. Notice what would happen if I didn't type the parentheses. Let me show you this. If I did -3, whoops, I need to get on a new line. Hold on just a minute. All right, so let me hit enter. So there's the problem done the right way. If I type in -3 minus -3 squared, notice I get an entirely different answer if I remove those parentheses. So that's why this is so important. It's really important that you add those parentheses. All right, this time let's do f of x is equal to the absolute value of x minus 7, and we will find f of -9. F of -9. All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to take this function rule right here, the absolute value of x minus 7, and we're going to see if any of our x's need parentheses. This x right here doesn't have an exponent up here, and he's not multiplied by anything in front. So,
may I have your attention, please? Lunch today in the cafeteria will be barbecue, potato wedges, and slaw. It will be served from 11:30 to 12. There won't be any served after 12 o'clock.
So here's your function rule. No parentheses are necessary around that x. So you're just going to write this as the absolute value of x minus 7. It's going to stay the same. And you're going to input -9 where that x is, so that's going to be the absolute value of -9 minus 7. So now we go to the Desmos calculator and we type that in exactly like we see it. You'll notice right here are your absolute value bars. So we're going to do the absolute value of -9 minus 7, and then close your absolute value bars. And you'll see right here, your output, your answer, should be 16. So to put these into that calculator, the parentheses are where we need to focus our efforts. All right, let's do f of x equals 5x squared minus 3x plus 7. 5x squared minus 3x plus 7. And let's find f of -1. F of -1. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is see where I need parentheses. I have 5x squared. That x is being raised to a power, so he needs parentheses. So it's going to be 5 parentheses x squared, just like that. Wrap that x in parentheses. All right, then I see minus 3x, so that's minus 3 times x. I'm going to need parentheses there because of the multiplying that I see. And then my plus 7. So emphasizing again, this x needs parentheses because he's raised to a power. This x needs parentheses because the -3 is being multiplied times him. All right, now we input this -1 for both of those x's, so it's going to be 5 parentheses -1 squared minus 3 parentheses -1 plus 7. And we're going to type this into our calculator exactly the way we see it. All right, so 5, parentheses, -1, close those parentheses and square. Minus 3, parentheses, -1, close those parentheses, and then plus 7. And there's my output, there's my answer. I should have 15. All right, let's do maybe one more. Let's do f of x equals the absolute value of 2x squared minus x plus 3. And let's find f of 5. F of 5. All right, so let's come over here first and let's see which x's will need parentheses around them. So I have my absolute value and then I see 2x squared. Well, because this x is being raised to the second power, he will need to be in parentheses. All right, then I see minus x. Nothing's happening to that x. He doesn't have an exponent. There isn't a number in front of him. So I can just leave him like he is. And then plus 3. So this x needs parentheses because of his exponent. This x doesn't because there isn't a number in front of him and there isn't an exponent on him. All right, now we input 5 for the x's. So it's going to be the absolute value of 2 times 5 squared minus 5 plus 3. And now it gets typed into our Desmos exactly the way we see it. So absolute value first, right here. And then 2 parentheses 5 close parentheses square. Minus 5 plus 3, and then we close up our absolute value bars. And you'll see right here your output should be 48. So, just to emphasize what you're doing, when they give you your function rule, your first step is going to be to rewrite it and add parentheses where they are needed. If you see an x being raised to any power, you will need to wrap that x and just that x in parentheses. So x squared, x to the 4th, x to the 11th, whatever that power happens to be. Any x's in your problem that are raised to a power are going to need parentheses around just the x. Just the x. And then any x's that are multiplied by numbers are going to need to be wrapped in parentheses as well. So if there's a number in front of that x, there's a number in front of that x is going to need to be wrapped in parentheses. So if you don't see an exponent, you don't see a number in front of the x, then you don't have to worry about adding parentheses. But then when you come over here to your Desmos calculator and start typing in, make sure you add those parentheses. So rewrite the rule. So let me go back to one of our examples. Take the rule they gave you, rewrite it inserting the parentheses that are needed, and then take this number and plug it in for the x's. And then you type that into the calculator exactly the way you see it. If you have any questions about this, if anything that I've said in this video is not clear, then please contact me and let me know. Don't forget, we've just got a couple more days before Christmas break. Please, over this break, if you are behind, try to get caught up. We don't have a lot of time when we come back from Christmas. And some of you need to catch up on some assignments. If there's anything I can do to help you, please don't hesitate to contact me. I will be checking my emails often this week and we'll be glad to Zoom with you or whatever I need to do. So your assignment is posted. Give it a try. Let's see how this goes.